Welcome to Kendo Rant. Hey folks, it's Andy. Welcome to Kendo Rant. Before we jump into it, don't forget to shop at kendostore.com. Right, what I want to talk about first before I get into the questions is something I mentioned in a previous video about using your right hand when you shouldn't, when you're striking, when you're doing incorrect tenuichi, and how that can result in not only incorrect datotsu, incorrect tenuichi, but also result in a lot of broken shinai. Okay, so basically what I'm talking about is when we hold the shinai, of course we hold it with the left hand at the bottom, even if you're right-handed, okay? So don't hit me up with the question, can I have my hands reversed if I'm right-handed? No, you can't, okay? No, just for the purpose of this video, no, you can't, okay? So everybody just do the left hand at the bottom in general, okay? And then the right hand goes here near the tsuba, okay? I don't have a tsuba on here, but normally it would have a tsuba here, okay? But even though we've got our right hand on the shinai here, we're still going to swing it mainly with our left hand, okay? Particularly with our bottom three fingers, our little finger, our ring finger, and our middle finger are what are really going to be controlling the shinai, okay? And what are going to be giving it the power and the momentum, really. That's what's going to be applying force to the shinai. So anybody that's kind of accomplished at Kendo, they've been doing Kendo for a while, and they've reached a certain level. If you look at the left hand, they'll have sort of, I'm putting my hands out of the light, but I'm not sure if you can see it on the camera, but they'll have like weird calluses here, like dead skin here, that's been built up from essentially using this part of the hand to control the shinai. Now, why is it like that? Well, okay, so look, here's a smaller shinai. We use the monouchi, which is this part, okay, the top third of the blade to strike, and we do that because that's the most effective way. Now, look, I'm going to preface this straight away. As you've probably guessed, I'm not a scientist, all right? I wasn't even that good at school, to be honest. I'm not a super smart guy. But what I do know is if I want to put the most speed into this kensen, I'm best swinging it from the furthest point away, which is at this end, right? I'm not going to get as much if I hold it this point and swing it as I would if I swing it using the furthest point away, yeah? So that's where the power comes from in Kendo, okay? Your datotsu ryoku, or well, it's a bit different to datotsu ryoku, but your sae, certainly, and the snap, the pop that you get from a good strike doesn't come from power from your muscles. It comes from speed in the kensen. Now, you do use your muscles to put speed in the kensen, but you don't do it by hitting like this. You do it through effectively using the shinai, okay? So, with that being said, shinai, all right, in kanji is written as bamboo sword, but you can't actually you can't actually read those two kanji together as bamboo sword, as shinai in any other situation, all right? It's a special reading that's been applied to those kanji for this particular implement, and it comes from the Japanese word shinao, which means to like flex or to bend, and that's really crucial actually is in terms of what the shinai is. The shinai is designed to be flexible, okay? And if you don't use the flex in the right way, or if you don't allow the shinai to flex properly, that's when you get breakages, okay? So, right, I've prepared a little whiteboard here, and I'm going to try and draw a diagram. Again, I'm no scientist, right? But let's see if we can walk through this together so that you can sort of follow me with where I'm going on this. Now, there's some science geeks there in down below. Just tell me how I'm wrong on all this sort of stuff if you want. Like I said, I'm no scientist. I'm no expert on those sort of physics and stuff like that. But what I know is that if you do it how I'm telling you, you'll break less shinai, right? So if we've got a shinai that sort of very roughly looks like this, right? Yeah, very, very sophisticated diagram. Obviously, this is the handle, this is the blade here, yeah? Like that. Now, when we swing this shinai, we're essentially putting force on it, right? We're basically making it travel in this direction. Yeah, those arrows, like it travels in that direction, right? And then obviously when that impacts with our friend who's wearing a men here, yeah, when it impacts here, then the shinai, of course, keeps traveling but at this point here, it's impeded by the men, and an amount of flexion happens, right? It flexes, right? It bends, yeah, sort of like this, yeah, and because it's still traveling in this direction, but it's now impeded by the men at this point, yeah. So it started to bend like this. Now, here's the point I'm trying to make. The point is that if we apply the same force, right, on the Shinai, if this is X, this amount of force, right, this is X, right, and if you think of this point here as, obviously it's traveling in an arc, right, it's traveling in an arc, yeah. If you think of that as the fulcrum of the arc, right, when this hits here and it bends like that, and this is the fulcrum, this amount of force here, X, is essentially distributed along the entirety of the Shinai, right? Now, I'm simplifying this, I'm super simplifying this, because I'm not saying that the right hand doesn't play a role at all, because it kind of does, but just go with me on it, right? So this force X is then distributed along the entire length of the Shinai, yeah? So the entire thing is taking that shock, taking that impact, and it's bending to compensate for it, innit? Yeah? It's bending like that, it's flexing. That's what it's designed to do, that's why it's called a Shinai, right? Now, what happens though, if I'm not doing a good job of rubbing this out, what happens though if we move the fulcrum, yeah? If we move that fulcrum from here and we put it here like that, right? And we then go and hit our next friend who's in his men, yeah? And luckily this guy's wearing a Kendo star Vanguard men, so he's nice and well protected, yeah. And we wallop him with the same amount of force as X as we did before. Okay, so X remains constant, yeah. But now we've moved the fulcrum to here. Well, what's going to happen is this part's essentially going to stay the same, and then this bend is going to be from here to here instead of here to here, right? So this same amount of force X is then distributed only along this distance, yeah, which is of course going to apply a lot more strain on the slats of the Shinai, right? So again, I'm no scientist, right? So I'm not going to say it's some sort, you know, I'm not going to be able to give you a much more in-depth description than this, but this is just how I know it works, right, from my own practical experience. Now, if someone wants to kind of come up and say, oh, well, it's all this sort of centrifugal leverage and all that sort of stuff. I tried looking it up, but it was a bit all over my head, to be honest. So I kind of just thought, well, let's just whip the pens out and draw some cartoons on a whiteboard. Yeah, but essentially what we're talking about, yeah, is the power required for Datotsu, for Yuko Datotsu, right, comes from putting speed in the Kensen, right? You do that by making sure that the fulcrum of the arc that you're swinging the Shinai in is at the very end of it, all right? So you're getting as much leverage as you can, so you're putting as much speed in this Kensen as you possibly can, right? Further, if you move this fulcrum to here, not only is your Kensen going to slow down, so you're not going to really get the proper type of movement that you need. When you hit it, you're going to put a lot more stress on the actual on the point between the impact and the fulcrum. You're putting a whole lot more stress on it, yeah, if you swing with the same force. And what most people tend to do, because they're not getting as much speed out of the Kensen, because they're not swinging from the furthest point away, they're swinging from here, the fulcrum is here, right? What they tend to do is they then feel like the strikes are too weak, because they can't get the speed in the Kensen. So the strikes feel weak. So what do? They put some of the old right arm into it a bit more, put some more muscles in, and they just up the power. Okay, and then they're just increasing even more. So this turned into a right scribble, hasn't it? But anyway, they they increase the power, the force even more on on the actual Shinai itself. So they're then actually really putting this blade section under a lot of stress. Okay, I know it's reflecting off the lights. Okay, so long story short, if you don't have the fulcrum of the Shinai at this point, yeah, your cut's going to be weak. You're going to try and make up for it with right hand power. You're going to try swinging it harder. The fulcrum's going to be here because your right hand's gripping the Shinai too hard. You're going to put too much stress on the blade here at the point of impact. And you're not going to allow the Shinai to bend in the full extent that it should, which is what gives it that sort of elastic snap, really, or that sort of pop that's required for correct sae, and of course for a valid point or yuko datotsu. Okay, so that's my explanation on that. That's why it's important to swing the Shinai with your left hand and not with the right hand. Okay, left hand, left hand, left hand. Of course, the right hand comes into play later on as you start to pull in the tenuchi, but that's a slightly different point. It works together with the left hand, and it's the left hand that's still doing the majority of the work. So that's that. Let's get into the questions. I'm looking to change out the tsukagawa on my Dobari style Shinai with a less worn and much higher quality one from a Chokuto Shinai I don't use much. Is there any issue in switching one to the other? They're both 39s. No, you can swap them over. It shouldn't be a problem at all. If your Dobari Shinai has a really large grip and the Chokuto Shinai's got a really thin grip, you're going to have a bit of trouble probably getting it on there, but usually they're around a similar size. It is going to be tough getting one of them off, and it's going to be equally tough getting it back on again. But with a bit of perseverance and patience, I'm sure you'll get there. All right. So yeah, you should be able to do that. Next one. Absolutely love your videos. Thank you very much. That's going to be another GIF, isn't it? Could you make some more Kendo basics videos? Yes, I'm trying. I've got the kata video filmed and done. It's on the way. Okay, it's on the way. I just have to edit it all and put it all together, and I'm really strapped for time. But I am working on more videos of the Kendo show. They are coming soon, so do stay tuned, all right? In the meantime, enjoy the Kendo rant. Okay, next one. Remember the junk Suburi stick you mentioned? Yeah, it's called Mennari. It's a piece of junk. Can you please elaborate on it? Asking because my mate is using it and I'm tempted. Yeah, I did say it's a piece of junk, and I still think it is a piece of junk. It's my personal opinion. It's not the official opinion of Kendo Star Limited. It's my personal opinion as a Kendo practitioner. I think it's a piece of junk because I tried it out. I thought about offering it for sale on Kendo Star, but because I can get it if I want to. I've got routes to get it, but I don't put anything on Kendo Star that I think's junk, so it's not on there. And I think it's junk because basically what it is, it's like a golf swing trainer that they've stuck a Kendo label on, and it's essentially it's like a hollow tube that they've put like a ball bearing inside. It's not a ball bearing. It's something that like makes a noise when it hits the end. So when you swing it, I've put the little Shinai over there. When you swing it, if you hold it over your head and then swing it in a way that will let this thing inside shoot to the end, and it's questionable as to whether that is the correct way to swing or not. I'm not really sure it is. Yeah, then it goes kind of like a ting like this when it hits the end. And then what you've got to do is you've got to put the thing vertical to slide it back down again before you can do another suburi. So you forget doing like zenshin kotai suburi or continuous suburi, because you can't. You can only do one cut at a time. Two, I just don't think that it encourages a good suburi. To be honest, I just don't think it encourages a good suburi. If you cut properly with the left hand, it doesn't tend to actually flick out in the right way, because you're not applying the force properly. I don't want to talk about science anymore, but it just is the wrong. It's the wrong shape, in my opinion, for doing suburi. So I think it trains bad habits. Next one, conflict of advice from different sensei in the same dojo, and how do you switch your kendo mode? Receive different advice from different sensei from my dojo. One is from our regular training, one from squad training. Which one should I follow? Also, how to switch between Shiai Kendo and Kihon Kendo. Really struggling with this. Okay, so first off, about conflicting advice sensei. We talked about this quite a lot. Basically, when you're with one sensei, do what they say. When you're with the other, do what they say. For the time being, as you start to progress, as you start to go down the road, what will happen is you'll start to form your own ideas as to what works better. But what you probably find happens more often than not is actually they're saying the same thing in a different way. It's just right now it doesn't seem that way, but later you'll come around and say, oh, actually, no, they're talking about the same thing. They're just approaching it from different angles. That happens an awful lot. Okay, you get told what you think is conflicting advice in your sort of certainly in the early Dan grades. I'd say up to like 4th Dan, you get that a lot. And then sort of after 4th Dan upwards, that's when things start to kind of, the sort of, it kind of blocks in, if you know what I mean. It colours itself in, and you kind of figure out, oh, actually, what this sensei was saying and what this sensei was saying wasn't contradictory. Actually, it works together, or actually it's the same thing. So just do what each one says at the time that you're with them, and you'll figure out your way as you go through. In terms of how to switch between Shiai Kendo and Kihon Kendo, you shouldn't change your Kendo for Shiai or for Kihon, because it's not that your kendo should be different. It's just that your mental attitude and your approach should be different. Tactically, you should be different. And it depends what you're talking about Kihon Kendo as well. I mean, if you're talking about like Uchikomi, or even like if your teacher says, okay, 5 times big men Kihon practice, yeah, you don't do the sort of little Shiai attacks that you would do maybe in a competition. You know, that's about practicing correct form. But you have to be disciplined in your mind as to understand the purpose of your practice. But at the same time, you shouldn't be approaching Shiai as if it's a totally different style of Kendo, because it's not. The really best Kendo players have got beautiful Kendo even when they're doing Shiai. In my opinion anyway. Next one. I'm definitely one of those people that hits using the right hand. I found that doing Suburi at home with the left hand, as you suggested in a previous video, is helping me get rid of this bad habit. However, I'd like to hear your opinion on what kind of exercise can be useful. I tried to fix it during the practice, but I ended up focusing too much on my arms and being even more tense. Okay, so this is, I hope the explanation before sort of made a bit of sense to you. Yeah, carry on doing the exercises that I showed you in the Doing Suburi at Home video. Definitely just keep doing that. It's not something that goes away quickly, right? It just doesn't, it doesn't just disappear. It takes time and takes a lot of practice, a lot of patience. Doing Kakari Geiko is a great way, but obviously if you're not in control of what practice you're doing at the club, there's not a lot you can do about that. But yeah, I mean, just keep doing Suburi at home and focus on it whilst you're doing your Suburi, and I think you'll make progress. There's no secret tips, unfortunately. There's no shortcut or like a kind of a magic formula of like, oh well, if you do this, you'll instantly be able to fix it. I wish there was, or if someone knows one, leave it in the comments. Okay, hey everyone. I had an interesting thought. I remember Andy saying along the lines, Kendo is a way of life, not to directly quote. I read somewhere that there's more to it than just sport competition. How does one actually make Kendo a part of their life or allow it to become a way of life? Obviously, I'm on that life's mission to make it as such, but I want your thoughts on this. So this is a comment from the Kendo Show Early Access group on Facebook. If you're not in the group, like, is this your first time here or something? There's a link in the description. Get in the group. It's free to join. It's a great place to post your questions because I usually answer them on here. And you get the opinions of loads of other experienced Kendo players as well. Kendo practitioners, all right? I didn't say Kendo players. So yeah, Kendo is a way of life. It's not just about sport competition and stuff. Rather than a way of life, it's not that Kendo is a way of life. I mean, it is for me, but it's it's an activity that is designed to help improve your the human character to improve you as a person, and to help you become a good upstanding member of society. That's what is literally written in the All Japan Kendo Federation's definition there. I did comment on this myself when I said one thing you can do, and this is what my sensei told me, is when you're going to work in the morning or when you first see somebody, you can practice your debana by being the first to say good morning or hello, or the first to reach your hand out to shake hands, or those sort of things. The other thing you can do is make sure that you leave things tidily, especially like, you know, when if you take your shoes off in your house, whether you do or not, I don't know. We do in my house because like I lived in Japan and my wife's Japanese, so we're sort of Japanesed in our house. So leaving your shoes neatly, same at the dojo, leave them neatly. Don't just leave them in a mess, and stuff like that. Just being considerate to others, being polite. Not being overly confrontational, but Kendo's about controlling yourself whilst you're under pressure and under stress, as well. So it's not so much that you should do that. You should think about practicing doing that whilst you're outside of the dojo, so that you can make your kendo better. The idea is the other way around. You're supposed to experience that in kendo, so that when you're out in the real world and you're under pressure, that you're naturally able to cope with the situation. So anyway, next one. When I do fumikomi, I do a hop. My sensei is going to work on this with me, but I want to impress him and try and work on it at home. Any help be appreciated. Okay, so this one, right, a couple of things you can do is obviously watch the video on fumikomi. I did post it in the comments of this question. Think about, I'm not much of a sportsman other than kendo, right? So I don't know much about other things. But one teacher I had told me about basketball. If you pass a basketball, you throw it forward like this. You don't throw it up like this. You throw it forward. And you should think about fumikomi in the same way, in that you're taking your body forward, not up this way. And the other thing you can do is, whilst you're practicing it at home, you can practice the exercises that I show in the fumikomi video, and take the Shinai or Bokudo and put it behind your back, sort of like this, okay? And as you practice your fumikomi, you can press here to keep your hips moving you forward, yeah? So you aren't doing this way, like this. This ain't great because I ain't got a lot of space, but not like this, but push this way with the Shinai, so that you are pushing yourself forward this way. Okay? So, yeah, that's what you can practice at home. But again, it's a lot like the other question. It ain't going to happen overnight. You're just going to need to put some work in. Okay, next one. I wonder whether you could record the commands that are given during the opening and closing parts of a keiko session, the dojo commands. I'm mainly interested in the correct pronunciation of these commands, and most glossaries and books are not useful for that. Additionally, you speak Japanese, which adds authority to your pronunciation, as opposed to that of non-speakers of Japanese. Same goes for counting. Some say hach, while others seem to prefer hachi, etc. What's the difference, and is there a correct way? Are they just dialect variations? Okay, I'm a bit hesitant to answer this one, in all honesty, because, look, yeah, I do speak Japanese, but, I'm not a native Japanese speaker. I learned to speak Japanese later on in life, and, yeah, I certainly ain't no shining example of correct pronunciation. In fact, I know that I'm probably, I don't think I have good pronunciation. It certainly needs a lot of improvement. So I definitely don't want to sit here and be an example of correct pronunciation, because I'm not a good one. Having said that, I'm happy to sort of quickly run through what some of the basic commands are, and you'll get a bit of an idea of what they sort of should be. I think I've done it before, but I'll go through them again. So the the main ones that are generally used is seiretsu. Seiretsu is like to line up. And yeah, I mean, it just means line up. So seiretsu. Usually then they might say chakuza or seiza. Chakuza means to sit down. Seiza means to do seiza. And then different dojos tend to do this one differently. Most dojos I go to would say shise o tadashiku shite or shise o tadashite, which means like shise is your posture, tadashiku or tadashite or tadashiku shite means to correct. So sit up straight, basically. Sit with correct posture. Some dojos use kyotsuke, which is like a little bit more kind of well, it's a bit different. Then the next thing is usually like mokuso. Mokuso is obviously the bit where you kind of look like you're meditating sort of thing, where you should be sort of thinking over. You could say it's meditating, really. It's, you know, thinking over what your practice goals are going to be and contemplate on what you're going to do in the practice, what you're going to focus on, or if you've just finished, what, you know, reflect on the practice that you just had. Some dojos stand up to do the bow towards shomen, in which case they usually say something like kiritsu, which means to stand up. Then shomen ni rei. So shomen ni is towards the shomen. Some places don't say shomen. I've heard different things like kamiza, which is like the high seat, which is another word. Yeah, I think that's it. Heard somebody say joseki once as well, which is like also means high seat. But most places say shomen. Except once I did practice as a I'm going off topic, but I did practice in a dojo in Japan that was in the grounds of a temple, and they'd say, was it Gobutsudan? Gobutsudan nire or something like that. It's like towards Buddha sort of thing, towards this kind of statue of, anyway. So yeah, shomen nire, sensei nire, otagai nire are usually the bowing commands. Okay, so sensei nire towards sensei, and otagai means together, so towards each other. And other than that, yeah, they might sometimes other ones that are used in the dojo, hajime, yame, of course, start and stop, and also putting on the bogu, me o suke. So men or skeru, it means put on, and men o tore, so it means take off the men. And that's pretty much it. In terms of the other question about like different pronunciations of, you use the word hachi. So number 8, hachi, which is like, I mean, it depends. It's language, right? It's not like different people pronounce differently. Just like I probably speak with a different accent to probably most other English people that you hear speaking on YouTube. Yeah, I mean, it's not that one's more correct or one isn't. They're just different ways of saying the same word. And so yeah, that's that really. Okay, next one. And this is the last one. Okay, because I've been going on for a while now. This video brings a question, perhaps for one. Oh, okay, right. Sorry, I need to preface this one. This is from a post that I put out just this morning of some Debana Men Ippon. Like a collection video, and there's a load of really awesome Debana Men points from top level All Japan level Shiai, and this is a comment on that. It says this video brings a question, perhaps one of your videos like this. In it, we see many examples of the competitors bringing their left foot back in preparation for the Debana Men, opposite of what you recommend in your Debana Waza video, which is pushing your right foot slightly forward. I'm sure both are fine, and I think maybe it's a technique that allows for explosive short distance cuts. But would you care to comment, Andy or anyone in the group? Okay, so, right, let me explain. In the Debana Waza video, that I did. Go and watch it if you haven't seen it already. But I'm talking about applying seme from keeping your left foot where it is and pushing out with your right foot in order to invite them to attack. And then at the point at which they decide to attack, you instantly bam, strike men or kode. And what you were talking about in the video, particularly the first couple of points in that video, which are by the same competitor who does have a particular style, and he does quite obviously step back with his left leg before launching the Debana Min. And it's particularly something that's I noticed when watching the video again after you commented. That competitor, the first couple of points in that video, and also there's one other competitor that does it a few times in the video as well, but they're actually both from the same police service, so they're both practicing in the same dojo, funnily enough. But there are sort of similar things that some of the other players do in that as well. Now, here's the thing, right? What I talked about in that Debana Waza video, that's an introduction to Debana Waza, and it's just one way of doing it, okay? The point of the Debana Waza video is that to do Debana Waza, you have to instigate their attack, okay? So it doesn't happen when they decide to attack. They attack because you're putting some kind of pressure on them, or you're somehow inviting their attack that you're able to preempt because it's happening in your timing and not theirs. This is exactly what's also happening in that video, and it's really interesting that you highlighted it because they just do it in a different way. What they're doing is instead of pushing forward with the right leg, because don't forget, these guys are the elite level players, the top level players in the world. If they apply that sort of base, sort of introductory level semi at that level, and sometimes they do and it works, it just isn't going to be as effective. They have to have much more tools in their sort of toolbox. So what lots of them are doing, if you notice, they're coming back slightly, just slightly, and especially the first one is doing just the left leg. They're kind of adjusting the distance between them and the opponent. And essentially what they're doing is by adjusting this distance very much, not very much as in an amount of distance, but kind of adjusting it quite frequently, they're kind of already starting to wind up that spring inside the opponent that's going to be ready to burst so that they can leap forward and attack. And what they're doing is they're getting them into that position, and then they're taking that sort of step back, which looks like a withdrawal, which looks like an opportunity for the opponent to seize on, and that's when they're attacking. Yeah, so it's a trap. It's a trap. They're actually stepping back, bam, and it's actually the tactic all along. It's called hikihana. Actually, it has a it's a real technique. It's called hikihana to pull, and it's really quite useful. But it was just a little bit too deep for me to get into in the Debana Waza video, because that's supposed to be a video that somebody that's like at Shodan can watch and also get and go and put into practice. But if we start talking about that, that only works. That sort of Debana Waza only works when both players are competing at a very similar level that's also a reasonably high level as well. So that's why I didn't talk about it in the Debana Waza video. But it's just another way of doing semi. Okay, everyone, you don't have to go forwards to do semi. Most of the time you do. Most of the time you apply semi forwards. But there is actually the method of doing semi by going backwards as well. That's a whole new can of worms that I'm not going to open right now because I've already been talking long enough. But that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to shop at kendostar.com. I said it at the start of the video. But obviously that's my website that provides amazing kendo equipment. I think we've got an outlet sale on right now as well, so like you can get some really awesome bargains. So yeah, kendostar.com. Don't forget, like, share, subscribe, all that sort of thing. Leave a comment down below what you'd like me to talk about next time. I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you very much for watching.